This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Hey everybody, welcome to Josh Has Autism.
Hello.
So I'm so glad that you're here with us. Before we do anything else, I want to let everybody know that the podcast is going to start coming out on Tuesdays at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So it's going to be put in a queue, I guess, as you guys, anybody that listens to this know that I don't know what happens. Josh and I talk, we give it to Josh's dad, and that's all I know. Yeah. So it kind of magically appears. Anyway, we've been having some struggles on getting this out at a regular time, and a lot of it is because during the week we're trying to work with your schedule, Josh. And one thing that we've established is that you need days that are complete downtime.
Yes.
Where you don't have to do anything.
Yes.
And it's been a struggle. And a lot of times when, you know, like if it's going to go up Friday and we plan on doing it Thursday, it's just not working, because if you're not up to doing it on Thursday,
or
then
something pops up. Or
yes. But mostly just if we're have the intention of doing it and then something, you know, gets in the way.
Yeah.
That is an issue, because we do it every week.
Yeah.
People have suggested we'll just do it ahead of time, and I don't know. We could try that, but it doesn't seem as authentic to me. Not that you know, it wouldn't be, because it would still be you and your thoughts and everything. But it's kind of like we always talk about what's going on in the week or what's come up, because it seems to me every time that we have a subject matter, it's come up. And that's how we get to the subject matters. Even if we're repeating things, they're very similar to past podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
They feel a little different to me because they're real now.
Right.
You know, and you're not the same as you were a year ago or
right.
a couple of years ago. So anyway, so I did want to let everybody know that. So those people that subscribe, and you can do that by going to sonyaking.com. It's SONYAKING.com. You can subscribe to the podcast there. And when you subscribe, then the podcast will be automatically, I don't know if this is right, it's sent to you, or you'll have access to it or something very easily. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, but I know that you, by subscribing, you get notified, however that is. But it's going to start coming out every Tuesday, 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And so from now on, that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
Okay, good deal. All right, so, Josh, I have some questions for you. And again, you know, like I just said, things come up as we go along, and then that triggers something like that, and then questions for you. And I don't tell you what I'm going to ask you. You typically, like 99% of the time, don't even know what we're going to talk about.
True.
Yes, because once we start talking about stuff, we talk about it, and then it's like, oh, we should have done that on a podcast. So that's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that has been brought up to me is how crowds affect people with autism, and the things that are doable, the things that are not doable. And again, everybody's different.
Yeah.
But for you, I'd like to know what you do to navigate environments that you're in, predominantly ones that are in a crowd. So not talking about, so we've talked a lot about the library. That's a different kind of a setting.
Right.
We've talked about D&D. That's a different kind of a setting.
Right.
But let me just throw something out you that I know that we've been in this situation before. Say if we go Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
And we're in the mall, and it's close to Christmas time, so a lot of people are there.
Right.
And because there's a lot of people there, there's a lot of sounds. There's a lot of talking amongst themselves. There's
At
the
best, yes.
Christmas music.
Yeah.
It's the bells
Yeah.
that they play if you're near the
Entrances.
Santa. Yeah, entrances and Santa.
Yeah.
And if you're in a setting where there's not a lot of people, one thing I know about you, if we're at home, you can hear the ice maker. That gets your attention. You can hear the clock.
Yeah.
You can hear the hum sometimes of electric lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of these things you're aware of. And so, knowing that you're aware of all of those things, and when you are put into a crowd, let's then talk about, or I'll say this because it's part of it, and I will ask you a direct question in just a second.
All right.
There are the sounds that we're talking about, but there's also the brightness of the lights. If you go from one store to another, they can look different. They feel different energetically, right?
Smell different.
They smell different. Yeah, absolutely. So you have your space, and when you're in a crowd of people like that, you can't control who walks by you, when somebody walks by you, if they were to brush against you, on accident, and maybe somebody's carrying a bag and the bag bounces into you. They may or may not even be aware of that. Yeah. Okay. So my question to you is, at this point in your life, how do you manage to get through that scenario
Of
being in a crowded space? And the example is like Christmas shopping.
Okay. So I can think of several different scenarios that all have a different answer.
Okay.
So I'll try and go through them.
Okay.
Because all of them have different feelings and different reactions. One, like, let's start off with the Christmas shopping, like you were saying in a mall.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I Christmas shop, I usually have some idea of what I want to get someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd have looked up where to get something, or where I could look to find something specific. And so it's not as much of a ooh, that looks nice, let's get them for that.
Okay.
Yeah, or get that for them. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's
So you have a plan before you go.
yes.
Okay.
Not always, because sometimes it's difficult to find gifts for people.
Mm-hmm.
But typically in this scenario of Christmas shopping, I do have a plan like that. With that said, there's the drive to get there with all of the crazy drivers that are rushing around to get stuff for people.
Mm-hmm.
There's all of the rush to get what you want for someone before someone else does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very stressful, very distracting. And
That's a good point, because it's not just the overstimulation once you're there. Mm-hmm. It's leading up to it.
yeah,
So your stress has already started before you even get there.
right.
So let me ask you something. I've never asked you this before. Do you stress whether or not you're going to find a parking spot?
I plan for that.
You plan for the stress of it?
I plan for a long walk to get to park and then get to where
So you prefer just to park away and not have the hassle of battling for a spot. You would rather park far away and walk.
because I know that it's going to be difficult to find any spots closer.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's expected, and I do my best to plan around that.
So you put a lot of thought into what's going to happen before you ever leave the house?
I it's not even so much thought in so much as because I don't actively think, hey, I need to park out here, but whenever I get there,
Right.
it's I'm not finding the right word right now. It's
Well, is it just, have you been like conditioned to do that at this point? Like at once upon a time.
maybe not conditioned, but something along those lines.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm thinking once upon a time that was stressful to you.
Yeah.
And so now, excuse me, I see what you're saying. You're not like saying out loud or even thinking to yourself, I'm going to go early so I can get a spot, or I'm going to park away, further away because of less hassle with getting a spot. But that at some point it was uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
And when something happens that's uncomfortable to you, you find a way to do it differently the next time to avoid that discomfort.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's not a conscious thought anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Did
it used to be?
I think it's very much what you just said, that
Okay.
that after the first time or so that I basically stopped trying to do that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Because it was uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it was too much to deal with to then also have to go in and shop.
Mm-hmm.
So, but crowd's part of it and everything. So I don't know these people. I know that they all are trying to do their own thing as well. Mm-hmm. Some of them are in groups, some of them aren't. Mm-hmm. And I try and not avoid people per se, but I try to not walk in, like, let's say someone's walking in a certain direction. I don't walk in that line of them. If I'm going the opposite direction, I'm not going to walk directly towards them or whatever. And I'm going to, and if we're walking at an angle or whatever, I'm going to try and walk so I wouldn't intercept them like that.
Sure. Now, knowing that you walk and you're looking at the way that the path that you take is important for you to feel calm. Mm-hmm. And so do you always look in front of you like that to see what you have to avoid so that you can keep your patterns as you walk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm saying all this stuff, mm-hmm. and all of it's true. Mm-hmm. At this point in my life, it's not something that I necessarily consciously think about.
Right. Right. So it's like if you ask somebody, do you chew on the left or right side? Right? In your mouth. Well, you chew on the left or the right side. Well, the only reason the person would know is if they've had some issue. Right. You know what I mean? Because normally you don't think about it. Yeah. You just don't think about it. You just do it. And you do whatever feels the most comfortable. Mm-hmm. The only time you notice it, like I just did, it's a good example for me right now because I just had a crown put on one of my teeth. Mm-hmm. And they said, don't, chew on the other side. Well, that, then I find out, well, that's not the side I usually chew on. So I see what you're saying. So you just do this. It's something that you've learned, but since you've learned it, you don't consciously think about it.
Right.
It's just become a habit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so in a setting like that, I'm focusing more on where I'm going and how I'm getting there. Mm-hmm. So that I'm not going to have an accident of some kind. Mm-hmm. So I'm more focused on that than necessarily worrying about the other people. Yeah.
So it's still,
it's taxing.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely taxing to have all of these things to consider while going out like that.
Right.
And that trying to remember what I need to get, where I need to get it, different things like that. Is this a good deal or whatnot?
Right.
Which is another thing that I've had to learn.
Sure. Yeah. We spend a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so you control the things that you can control, and there are things that you can't control. So that would be the lights that they use, how some department stores are really bright, and some are easier to go into. They don't, bother your eyes the way that others do.
Right. Some of them have like candles going or whatever, or whatever scents. They're just overpowering. And then, all that stuff.
And some like new clothes, I mean, they just have an odor. When there's that many of them in a store, they just have a certain smell. Yeah. But also, you're dealing with perfumes of people and deodorant of people. Sometimes the lack of deodorant of people. Yeah. And so,
not to mention little kids possibly running around. Yeah, it's and you can't tell where a kid is going to run to.
Right.
They could be zigzagging every which direction. They could be chasing another kid that's zigzagging, and so they're also doing that. And it's like, how do you plan around that? You don't. You go to the opposite side of the
right.
open area, whatever.
Do you just think when you're in there, because I can see, and when you're talking about this comes your ability to make those changes, so that if somebody's coming, you can take some steps to the left or the right, so that you're not going to run into one another.
Right. And also early enough that it's obvious to them as well that I'm going to pass on a certain side of them or whatever.
And it's tough too, because you don't know who's aware, who's not aware.
Right.
People, just in general, are dealing. They're on their own world a lot of times. You know what I mean? They not necessarily aware of what other people are doing.
Right.
And
if they're in a group of people, they might not be focusing on what's going on.
And then right, just one another. Yeah. But this is a lifetime for you of learning how to recognize how you feel, recognize what's causing. If it's an uncomfortable feeling, why? If it's a relaxed feeling, why? What caused it? And what you need to either, if it's something you don't like, to avoid that, and also what you can do to help yourself relax. And I'll give you an example. One thing is to have a shiny stone, a crystal in your pocket.
That I like the feel of and color and all that stuff, yeah.
And people don't even have to know. It doesn't have to stay in your pocket. You take it out and you just hold it. And,
right.
That's, in the past, that's been something that's been comforting to you.
And that was before fidget spinners even. So that's one thing that has kind of, maybe not replaced, but it is what I think was actually created because of, yeah. And
they have those poppers, things. And so you do those things to just relax sometimes, and to get you, because we're talking about this scenario could be really stressful for you. And I think what you're saying is, before you would have to figure out how to manage it. Now that you have done it for so many years, there are just adaptations that you make naturally to avoid the things that stress you out.
Correct.
And say, for example, you and somebody else are walking towards one another, and they're not moving, and they're not moving, and they're not moving.
As in, like, moving to the side?
No, like going closer. You're going to get...
So they're
going straight at each other.
Yeah.
you're going to get more stressed out the closer you get, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know. So you take the action to move out of their way well in advance.
Yes.
Right. So the plan that you go with now then is to have an idea of what stores you're going in. You like to know what you're looking for before you go, because you want to get into the store and get what you want and get out of the store, get out of the mall as fast as you can. Is that right? I mean, unless it's like a GameStop.
Yeah. It more or less, yeah. I mean, there are times where still going with the Christmas shopping scenario,
Mm-hmm.
where there are gifts where I have a general idea of what I'd like, so I know what store I'd want to go to that would most likely have the perfect thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd have to actually search around the store to see what is the perfect thing. But yeah, it's fairly planned out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I had mentioned that there were multiple different scenarios that would have different reactions. So Christmas shopping, or just general shopping, which is less hectic at times for the most part than Christmas shopping, is I'd almost call it impersonal in regards to the stresses, because there's no actual stakes for someone else to have interacted with me, but there's so much going on that I, being who I am, have to be aware of all of it, because that I take it in and it will be there regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So having that methodology, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
helps me work through it. But at the same time, once I get back home, I'm probably not doing anything else the rest of the day.
Right. Yeah.
To make sure that I'm recovered and okay.
I think sometimes, Josh, that's something that people that don't have autism, that we miss, that we don't. I'm glad that you said that, because it's easy. What I mean by miss is it's easy that we don't recognize that, because
Don't recognize which thing.
if that experience needs downtime afterwards.
Right.
You've got to have that. That's what I'm saying. What I mean by miss is that those of us that don't have autism, let's say we're talking about me and I went to the store and it was crazy and it was packed, and it can still be stressful, but when it's done, it's done.
Yeah. You're like, oh, thank goodness that's over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I think that I have an analogy for this.
Okay.
So, you know how in some movies and some books, how whenever someone is doing something to stand up to someone else,
Yeah.
they're so afraid, but they're standing upright and everything like that.
Yes.
And then whenever the encounter's over and it went okay, and they're away from, or the one they stood up to left or whatever, it's like that huge sigh of relief, but they can't stand any longer because their legs went out from under them and everything.
And that's the adrenaline.
Yeah, I think that's the best analogy.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. So you're so wiped out afterwards because it took all of your energy and your
focus and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great analogy, as a matter of fact. Now, so the reason I think that's important that you say that is because there's done this kind of shopping. And, I would go with Nana and, or friends or whatever it is. And especially if it was Nana, we would then go and then we would go get something to eat.
Yeah.
Which is still in and of itself a stressful situation for you. Going out to eat is enjoyable for you, but it does come with stressors as well.
Yes.
So this is something else I think we should point out. If you go out to eat, you've got to come home and have downtime from going out to eat.
Right.
Which
I go out to a movie theater. I go out to be in a social setting.
Yeah.
Even if I'm going out to play D&D with friends.
Yes.
I come home, I need a little bit of downtime to be able to function better again. Because it wipes me out. Really takes a lot of mental energy.
Yes. I have another question that we haven't talked about it, and that is that does anything feel scary? Well, maybe scary is not the right word, but there's fears, whether what could be anything at all. When you go out, do you ever have like phobias that you have to work through, or any fears that it's not the same, it's not going to be anything like it, but I'll just tell you. When I go on an escalator, I'm always cautious for anybody that I'm with and myself. I always look at our shoes because I want to see, are shoes tied? If there's strings, are the shoes tied? And are the shoestrings up far enough that
it won't get caught?
It won't get caught.
Yeah.
And this is the first time you're ever hearing of this. You never even knew that I did this. But that's one of the things that it causes.
Uncommon.
It causes anxiety with me when we get on the escalator.
Yeah.
And
which is the moving stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So it doesn't matter going up or going down. It does not matter. There's still a little bit of trepidation and nervousness and anxiety that I feel when, even if I'm by myself, I'm looking. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
But it's like,
or if you were in an airport and it had one of those, is my baggage have a string?
Yeah.
Hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the closest I can come to compare it to what I'm talking about, which is that's not, is it a fear? I don't know if I would really call it a fear, but maybe.
It's a concern for possibilities.
Yes. And it's not just, so what we've talked about is you having the experience of all this stuff out there. Yeah. And you and I both know that it's because you take in so much simultaneously that it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
Now, you add a fear to that, and I just don't, I don't.
I know
it seems like it's way too much.
So that's one thing that whenever I'm at a mall that has those, I'm always leery of.
You do the same thing?
I think most people do.
Oh, I didn't know that. Everybody else seems like, they're just fine. They're just I've watched people get on an escalator, just looking at one another, not even talking. They just like, like I'm worried for them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have that same, as a really. Another one I have is, whenever there are the multiple floors in a mall, I can't go up on the higher levels near the middle of whatever floor, near the railing, because it's usually like a see-through railing.
A lot of times it is.
Yeah, I think it's more so that you can see where other stores are.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like I don't get vertigo, but I'm getting vertigo.
Right.
I'm going to fall over this. No.
Yeah. Right.
And it's irrational. It's
because you don't have vertigo. You're not, but you're feeling like you have vertigo even though you don't have vertigo.
Yeah, it's almost like an optical illusion. Like it's almost like the floor is leaning down towards those
right,
just a little bit, and it's like I'm always worried that I'm going to stumble and then flip over it or something.
I know, yeah. Do you visualize that happening, or do you just have that, it's like this sudden fear of that or concern of that?
Why do you think I don't go near them? I don't like even considering it.
Yeah.
And it's...
So, like, you can see the scenario playing out, and
in just about everything,
Yeah, it'd be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So what about glass elevators?
Difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult. It's nice to look out as long as I don't necessarily look anywhere near even or down.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just so... Yeah. And it didn't help that I watched The Poseidon Adventure.
I just said to somebody that something about us is like going on a cruise, and I said, well, I would never go on a cruise on around New Year's Eve. Poseidon Adventure, because of the Poseidon Adventure. So it's weird. Movies can do that to us, right?
I mean, just a couple days ago, the kids had on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, yeah.
Or was it
Willy Wonka and the Chocolates? Willy Wonka.
The original one.
Yeah. I always get confused about that because I think it's called Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
Those we watched. It was the original.
Yeah, it was...
Gene Wilder.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I noticed one of the first times I watched it was when they were on the boat going through that tunnel. One of the images that shows up on the wall
mm-hmm.
that you guys never noticed until I pointed it out to you. Like, really? Okay.
Yes.
It was on TV today, a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, watch this.
Yeah.
And whenever they were in the tunnel, chicken gets its head cut off. I had so much trouble eating any kind of meat since then, especially if I think about where it came from.
Yeah, me too. Well, I still do because I vegan for a long time, and when doctors just said you can't be vegan anymore, it's not not doing okay.
But that's one of the reasons why meat had to be disguised for me for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it had to be mixed in with other flavors and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm the same way. I don't...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
think about that.
I'm actually on point today. I'm remembering that there's other scenarios.
Okay. Good.
So we talked about the Christmas shopping and mall shopping, whatever. Mm-hmm. Then I said that it's almost an impersonal kind of crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's focused on themselves to do what they need to do. There's other kinds of crowds, though. Like, I've gone to conventions before.
Like Comic-Con.
Yeah, yeah. And with those, there's always this nervous, excited kind of feeling that it seems like everybody has.
Yeah.
And it's always like a thing of wonder as well.
Right.
And does
it feel like you're a part of that when you're there? Is it exciting because you're a part of things?
A bit, yes. It's more than just that, though. It's because most of the people that are there because they have similar interests.
Mm-hmm. So those are your people.
Yeah. And there are some people that are there to, like, ferry the kids or young teens or whatever around that aren't necessarily interested in this, and vice versa, I guess. But but it's for the most part, people are really there because they are interested in it, and you don't have to know these people to get some of them.
It's hard to get some of them. What'd you just say?
You don't have to know these people in order to be able to get some of them.
I see what you're saying.
And
I get it. That's so, because typically, and you can correct me if this is wrong, but I'm just thinking that this is what you've kind of said, that you share with me all the time, that it's hard for you to understand how other people think and feel. And what you just described, you don't have to wonder what they think or feel, because collectively, you're all in this together. They might like a character that's not your favorite character,
right,
but still you have that.
The overall...
Yeah. Okay. Well, it makes sense.
Yeah. And whereas something like the mall kind of thing, there's no connection other than being at the mall.
Yeah. And just like you said, even if you went out to eat and you came home, or if you went to the movies and you came home, when you go to Comic-Con, you're out for a whole day.
Yeah, afterwards. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's beyond. And I think that's because you put more of yourself out there. You interact more.
Yeah.
You know, you feel more, I would think, more comfortable talking to people because the subject matter is
relatable.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also that there are no real expectations.
Right. I get it. That's there's no expectations. You guys are, everybody there is just, it's fun.
Yeah.
And again, characters might be different.
Yeah.
You know, a person's background is different.
Yeah.
But you're all there for the same purpose, and that is the enjoyment of
what you do, what we're there for.
Right. Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Or whatever
Right. Whatever it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's at a convention, it is a lot of stuff going on. Like there are
there's characters that you can interact with, there's merchandise that you can buy, there's people that are there's real people that are, when I say real people, what I mean is actors that play a part are sometimes there. Or there as the character.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And
it's all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, and it's really cool to be able to interact with these people that they're normal people. Well, normal as so far as normal can be. But,
normal people at a Comic-Con.
But it's really, if you go to something like that, knowing that there's going to be all kinds of people there that have a similar interest, that you don't have to have expectations of others.
That's a great way of describing it. And the way that it seems to me is that when you go to Comic-Con, there does not need to be a beginning, a middle, and the end of a sentence or a conversation. That's a place where you can just start wherever. It's just,
open.
Yeah, it's like you jump in the middle of a conversation, the middle of a sentence, and it feels like home.
Yeah, and when I say it's more open, it's not just that people are like-minded or whatever. You, in my experience, you're also opening yourself up more than the mall example, for example. You're not going to be open like that.
No.
You're if anything, you're probably going to close off,
yeah,
and be worried about someone pulling out your wallet or something.
Well, that's one thing, but the reason that my perspective anyway is why it would be so open at the Comic-Cons that you like going to so much is because everybody's, and there's a creative vibe.
Yeah.
It's creative mode. And anybody that's ever been in a play knows that, whether it's in school or it's in college, out, so with professional, whatever it is, your community theater. When you do that, there's this camaraderie, and people come together for that purpose.
Yeah.
And it's just then an ensemble.
Yeah.
And I think of the Comic-Con as just a larger ensemble.
Right.
And
I will say that with plays and stuff like that, that's another social thing.
Mm-hmm.
But everything has its place for the most part. Everything has to be in a general area at a certain point, and so on and so forth. Whereas with a convention, there are times when certain things will occur at certain places, but you're not required to be at any of them,
mm-hmm.
which is kind of
so it's not stressful for you because you don't have to be someplace at a specific time.
If anything, it can be stressful because there's no real structure. It's
I know.
It's a different kind of thing. I know, but
it's confusing because it sounds like you just said the opposite.
They're both different kinds of stress.
Right.
And I know it sounds confusing a little bit. I think if there's nothing else I can say about it, having autism is having a constant stress,
mm-hmm.
where it's always, am I doing this properly? What am I? Is this something I can do? Is this something that will happen to me? Can this happen? If I do this, will this happen?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of unknowns that cause a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard before that I don't have any stats of this or anything like that, but I've heard that as a person with autism gets older, the likelihood of suicide is also higher. And I have never considered that as an option, but I will say that I understand where that can come from, because all of the stress and worries about everything can really build up, and if you don't know where to go or what to do or whatever, it can be very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and the older that I get, the more cynical I've gotten, I think, a little bit. Maybe not, whatever, I'm not, that might not be the right word. At times discouraged. Very, because I see things how they are.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I see things how they are. And it's not always a good thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
And as I get older and more experienced with life and how interactions are with other people, it's very discouraging that and confusing that people aren't always as they seem to be.
Mm-hmm. As they want you to believe they are.
Well, just period.
Mm-hmm.
That I know I've come across as naive and other things like that because I didn't understand what was going on or how people were thinking things or whatever. And so having that hindsight, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and having that experience and learn from it, it's troubling. It can be troubling. But sorry.
Because no, that's okay. That's okay. I think that that's very important to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's one thing that, as you know, your dad and I both, was a big concern as you were growing up, is that you being unaware of, let's say, if somebody was being sarcastic, was somebody mocking, was somebody teasing, was somebody baiting you, was, you know, all of those things that you were very literal. So you took things, you know, the words for what they meant as you interpreted them and no other way.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that it's, for parents, that's something that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
You know, is trying to teach, you know, our kids that, okay, so they might be saying this, but it doesn't always mean that, you know, and but why? Yes, that was a long journey.
Yeah.
And so I think to get, yes. And although I will say that, you typically have a perspective that's a very positive, you don't view others when you get, if there's a disappointment to be had, you don't tend to dwell on what the other person has done. What you tend to focus on more often than not is, have you disappointed someone? Have you not done, you know,
what I was supposed to, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're really hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And so knowing that that's what you deal with on a regular basis too, I think that's why, another reason why Comic-Con is so comfortable for you and you know, it's something that you really look forward to, is because everybody is a character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if you're not dressed up, you go to see the characters and you know their characters, and you, even if, let's say, two people that are not dressed up, there's two people that went to Comic-Con to check it all out.
Yeah.
You still have this unspoken connection.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of the mystery out of it. As it seems kind of funny, is because it's all, you know, costumes and, you know, and characters.
Yeah.
But it takes the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why you're more comfortable, because what you're describing in your daily life has been, what did that mean? Did I say the right thing? Do I need to say something now, or is that conversation over? Should I have said something? Right. When they said this, now you're telling me they didn't mean that. Well, why did they say that if they didn't? Why'd they say that if they didn't mean that?
Right.
And then how can it mean this if they said that? It doesn't end.
Right.
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 Throw on a costume. Right.
Yeah.
And people going for this enjoyment of role playing and characters and and man, it takes all that stress away.
Right.
But then afterwards, you've given so much of yourself above and beyond, more than likely.
Yeah.
And you're wiped out.
I have a smile on my face.
Yes, you do.
But I'm wiped out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And seriously, it's no stretch. You need an entire day to recover.
Yeah.
So a day after you've been to Comic-Con, I only see you when you're hungry.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So it's a different, it is a different kind of stress.
Yeah. A different kind of crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, in my experience with going to different Comic-Con things or different conventions, a lot of it is mutual respect and wonder.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. That's a perfect way to put it. And wouldn't it be great if society was just like that, right? How we really appreciated everybody for where they are and what they could offer, what they, because if you think about, if everybody thought, well, everybody's just doing the best they can do, and their best might not be, up to the standards of the next person or the capabilities of the next person, but it doesn't matter.
It's their best.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be compared to someone else's.
Right, because it's not a contest. Right? It really isn't. And I think sometimes people look at it that way, and so they categorize people as less than, which is a huge mistake, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so for the people that are dealing with this, where they get overwhelmed with the sights and the sounds and the feelings of going into a situation like the mall, but we're picking Christmas time because I chose that because that's something that
it's coming.
Whether you've got autism or not, it can be stressful going into the mall at Christmas time.
Just going to the mall, period.
It can be. I really enjoy it. Yeah. But it's loud and there's a lot going on. Yeah.
So much going on.
Yeah. So
yeah.
What do you think? Do you have any suggestions? Mine would be to have something that they like to hold.
That can like the fidget thing or whatever. Yeah. Having something that they can
focus on.
Or if not focus on, then giving their hands something to do so that they're not just literally fidgeting around.
Sure.
Because that gives a bit of an outlet and direction.
Mm-hmm.
There's having if not a set plan, then a good guideline of we're going to go this way. We can do a loop around the entire mall, or we're going to this store, then this store, in this store.
Right.
As a heads up, especially before you even leave there leave home is a good idea.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And then what about an escape plan?
Yeah. If you get split up somehow or whatever.
What I mean is that, so if I'm going to take you to the mall, even now,
Yeah.
right? Even now, if we go, all you have to do is come up to me and say,
This is too much.
This is too much.
Yeah.
And we can leave. We can leave. I'm saying that, do you want to leave a basket of stuff that you were going to purchase at the store? No, it's not ideal, Mom. But, for your well-being, I've done it.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that knowing that you have an escape plan, an option is a better word. An escape option is much better.
Yeah.
And
it's not. Sometimes it's not even necessary to leave to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just to take a step back, so to speak, and go to a not necessarily corner or anything like that, but a bench somewhere that I could sit down and just.
Sometimes just out to the car.
Yeah, just to get a breather.
And sometimes it's putting on a song it's comforting.
Yeah, familiar. I love singing, so you've always put on music that I enjoy. Yeah.
And there's been times when, so when I say leave a basket, if there's frozen food that's going to go bad, and you just go tell somebody, we have an urgent situation. Can you put this away? I'm so sorry. Could you please put it away? And so that way the food doesn't go bad.
Right.
But, there's been times where I have a cart of stuff that's not frozen food. We leave that space and we go back and it's still sitting there.
Yeah.
We're like, okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
But the need is to get you away from that, the feeling, the sounds, whatever it is.
Right.
Just the overwhelm.
Right. Even if it's just taking a step outside.
Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes we've been able to go back in and sometimes we haven't been able to go back in.
Yeah.
And your well-being is more important than whatever it is that we've been doing in there. Has it been frustrating? I'm talking to the parents right now and the caregivers. Yes, it can be frustrating when you have it in your schedule to go do this and get it done. And that's the time that you have. And then now that wasn't accomplished. It can be frustrating.
I think I've talked to you about that kind of thing. Have you before?
Sorry.
It's all right. The coaster stuck to your drink.
Yes. No, it's okay. I got it. You got it.
So you, where you mentioned it before, where that kind of scenarios happened when this.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost my train of thought of where I was going with it.
We were talking about needing to leave the store, and
you were talking about frustrating.
Oh yes, how as a parent or a caregiver, when you have that in your schedule that this is what we can do, this is the time I have to do it, and go, and then
that's what it was. Said you've said before in a sarcastic kind of way.
Surprise.
Yeah. That well, that's on me. I shouldn't have planned anything.
Well,
I've heard you say that.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes to those kind of situations prior.
Yeah.
Not necessarily right after the moment, but like looking back on it, I've
sure.
heard you say that.
Yeah.
And
right. Yeah. That's that.
And it's to me because I know you, and I learned enough about humor and stuff like that. I know you're joking.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of there's a hint of seriousness, but you are joking.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, it's like, duh. Because yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You just have to go with it, because if you expect absolutes, you're going to stay in a state of of frustration.
Which
You know?
is funny because what do I really enjoy having?
Absolutes. Yeah.
Having autism is having a life of contradictions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I think that's helpful. That's helpful because we're going into holiday seasons. Look, it's not even Halloween, and they're already Christmas music in stores, Christmas commercials on TV.
It wasn't even double digits in October yet.
Right.
When we went to a store and they were playing Christmas music.
Yep.
Oh my God.
So another thing that you do too, that I want to mention this, is that when you're shopping for somebody, you have found that doing so online is helpful.
Or at least looking at what places have what. Yeah.
Yes. It's to find things first of all, so it takes the stress out of it. The only thing then is that do they have it or not?
At that point, yes.
And so sometimes you've opted to just order online, and I would say be careful with that. If you're going to order online, use a credit card or PayPal or because
insurance.
You don't want to use your debit card because it's more risky. A credit card, you can always go back to dispute it. Exactly. But yeah, so you do a lot of things online, and you avoid everything we talked about. Right?
Yeah. But on the flip side of that, having that experience, and as well as you don't always see everything online, even if it's all laid out as it is on like a list of things. You don't always see all those things, even if it's a list of what would actually be there.
Right.
Like,
sure. That's what you're saying. The stores have things that are not listed online.
That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, that's what I thought you said.
No, that even if a store has on their website all of the things that they have, and it's very orderly and everything like that, it doesn't have, I guess it's not as real, I guess, or something along those lines, as if you were to go into the store. Sometimes you find things there that you wouldn't have considered online that are... I'm not wording it very well. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So you're just done. I didn't word it well. It's done. Okay. Well.
So, the social things, I know we talked about mall, talked about conventions.
Mm-hmm.
There's other kinds of things out there that have different things attached to them. And it can be different for every little thing because there's all of these different factors and nuances and stuff like that that really can change everything about it.
Well, there are little things.
So with that, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
So as such, it really makes it difficult in my experience, it has made it difficult for me to deal with those differences and even try to explain those differences, let alone someone from the outside trying to understand why I'm having such a difficulty when it looks very similar to something I've successfully done or experienced.
Oh, right. Yes. So something that looks similar from the outside, and if you're not able to complete something or accomplish something or else follow through on something, from the outside, it's like, well, what? Well, you just did that last week. You just said that yesterday, whatever it is. And you're like, no, this is very different because of, these little nuances that we are not observing from the outside.
Right. Like, did I get enough sleep the night before? As a really obvious one. Just different things like that sometimes don't even necessarily look like they be a factor, can affect it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's a lot of the things can be mitigated, not necessarily ignored or not cured, but ignore, whatever. They can be minimized or mitigated with experience. And I don't like to leave it at that, to try and help all of you guys who are listening. I don't like to leave it at that, but as it is right now, it's different situations have different factors, and having experience helps.
Yeah. I think that's not a disappointing way to end this conversation and this podcast today, Josh, because it is true. Everybody understands that as you learn, as you grow, as you age, hopefully you've learned things. And what you're saying is that there are so many nuances, there are so many cause and effect scenarios here that you deal with on a regular basis, that the way that you really have found that you do the best was just by trial and error, and that you've seen it before and you felt it before and you had different outcomes. And one of the things for you has been, what's going to happen? You would say a lot of times, that's not going to work because of this. And what you found is that, well, sometimes that because of this can be overcome. And you're willing to try things most of the time now, whereas when you were younger, there was no way that you could try them.
Because
it felt too overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so it's not a cop-out to say that these are the things that you've learned. I think that you shared some ways to things to focus on and ways to get through these experiences. But I think that that's completely valid. Just because you've done them before, you know how to do them now. That's not a cop-out. That's the truth.
And even then, even now, I have times where I cannot do it. I cannot do things I normally would.
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's right. Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us again. And yes, we will look forward to switching over. It's going to help us with our schedule that these go up on Tuesday mornings. So looking forward to that's going to make it easier on you, Josh, because this change is happening because of your schedule, and to make sure that you have days off and make sure that you have an opportunity to do this. And the next day you're rested. Right. So everybody, thank you so much for being with us. My website, sonyaking.com. You can hear us there, and there's a blog and some artwork that goes along with this podcast. And send us messages if you'd like. You can send the messages the same way. Let us know if you have any suggestions. That will be terrific.
Yeah.
Anything that's helped you on any subject that we're talking about, or a subject that we're not talking about. You know? Yeah. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, please let us know.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. Anyway, I hope that you're happy and healthy out there, and have a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Love you.
Bye.